The Book of Wind. Although breaking wind is a natural bodily function, talking about it is often considered to be in bad taste, not to mention bad smell. Nevertheless, breaking wind, whether referred to as passing gas, cutting the cheese, letting one rip, or whatever, does contain an element of humor, in addition to elements of ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, and mercaptan. With that element of humor in mind, The Book of Wind, a true work of work of art, was written by Jim Riva at the height of his intestinal energy. The Book of Wind is also known as Considerations for a Blank. Here is the sentence with a for the blank. A very disagreeable odor lingered in the immediate area for a relatively long time after left. The person who leaves can be either the person who commits the anal atrocity or the person who is on the receiving end of it, and all of the victims have the names of flowers. All gassed up and nowhere to go. Chicago Bears football fan Andy Rip Van Stinkle Banghorn, whose leg-cocking release of unfrozen foulness at the cryogenics facility of the Mayo Clinic, where he had been frozen in a standing position for 25 years, was seen by the millions of television viewers that had tuned in to watch live the return to life of a frozen man. After seeming very disoriented and quite confused, Banghorn finally said, "Well, I guess I've thawed. So how have the Bears been doing?" Fat and flatulent, fuzzy six bellies Bamfart, whose rippage in the spotlight, while dancing on a pedestal in nothing but a G-string and red high heels and singing Tiptoe Through the Tulips, was part of his secret initiation ceremony for admission into the exclusive Indianapolis Flatulent Fat Men's Club. Me, myself, and ay. Eduardo Disdains, whose trace-leaving unleashment, while donning his wife's shocking pink silk-laced panties while she was not at home, later made his wife Salvia slightly suspicious. A tear in her black fishnet stockings and a broken snap on her lacy brassiere made Salvia more than slightly suspicious, so she installed a hidden camera that later captured Eduardo dancing around the living room in her undergarments. Smell it like it is. Pansy Werblin, who had been elected by her fellow employees at a nursery to do them all a favor, and their boss, Enos Fartalong Gassity, too, and go into Mr. Gassity's office and politely tell him that he had very bad wind, that is, fartatosis, and recommend a fartatosis-fighting rectal wash that was on the market. Leaning back in his executive chair, with his legs spread far apart on his executive desk, Mr. Gassity resentfully unleashed whopping wind, while giving Pansy the pink slip. Unfortunately unforgettable, Wendell drop-dead disgusting Fowles, whose foulness during a manager's meeting at an incense-making company in Dallas was remembered several years later by then and still President Montel Hollycock, when Hollycock was called by the personnel director of a cologne-making company in Galveston for a check on prospective employee Wendell Fowles' previous employment references. Said Hollycock, "Wendell Fowles. Oh, yes, he was the head of our frankincense department. A nice guy, and a very good worker, too, but he had wind bad enough to gag a maggot." Wham Bam Fartogram. 77-year-old Fartogram girl Granny Gassaway, wearing only thigh boots and suspenders, who had erroneously gone to the wrong home in New York City to deliver a blast of gas as a birthday present joke. Ultra-Orthodox Jew Shalamet Ben Rose later filed suit for injury to his feelings. Thanks a lot. Cornelius Kingsfart, just back from a 3-day business conference in Mexico City, who gave his fart right after his wife, Zalia, welcomed him home with, "Oh, hi, so what did you bring me back from Mexico?" Vala Fartorian, rank fartly, voted by his Hollywood High classmates most likely to disgust, who answered the prim, self-righteous mother of his high school prom date anally rather than verbally when she asked him why he was nicknamed Rank. Blowin' in the wind, Henrietta Hurricane Northcutt, who surreptitiously sauntered to the side of the room at a party in South Bend, Indiana, and furtively put her backside to an opened northward-facing window, without realizing that there was a southward wind. A stinking shot in the dark, discreet blind man Michael Foghorn McGee, who gastfully left the large guest room at a party in Birmingham, England, slipped into a dim room that he believed was unoccupied, and explosively expelled rottenness, to the breathless and motionless astonishment of the man and woman, Ambrose Stratford and Amaryllis Avon, of Stratford-upon-Avon, who had been passionately making love. Teeing off on the farting range, Graham Smells, whose accidental expulsion in the clubhouse at Pebble Beach occurred while he was demonstrating his golf swing after having hit a hole-in-one. A frustrated golfer who was there in the clubhouse decided to go back out on the golf course and follow Smells's tip by likewise breaking wind at the top of his backswing. And he coincidentally also shot a hole-in-one, which sent a slew of experimenters out to practice what became known as the Smells swing. Requiem for a bullfarter, Spaniard Ferdinand King Ferdinand Gassineo, a bullfighter, whose revolting rippage in the Girona bull ring, while holding out the muleta, made the bull delay charging and consequently spend a little more time in deliberation. Unfortunately for Gassineo, the bull, which happened to be an exceptionally intelligent bull, correctly assumed that the malodorous matador would do a maneuver away from the stench instead of doing a maneuver into it. I fart, therefore I am. Rain Gassimer, who lacked self-confidence but surprised everyone at a banquet at Spago's restaurant in Los Angeles by breaking wind very assertively after having listened to a motivational tape. Assault and fartery, Robert Rotten Hood Sputer, a perverse modern-day Robin Hood. He farted at the rich and sprayed a rosewater atomizer at the poor, who made the mistake of farting at an undercover policeman posing as a rich woman at an outdoor cafe at San Francisco's Fisherman's Wharf. The Dark Side of the Moon, Scumbag Fartenbacher, about whom a woman in a two-person domed tent at the Rocky Mountain National Park alarmingly whispered to her husband after they had gotten zipped up in their sleeping bags, "Psst, there's a man looking into our mesh window." Replied her also alarmed husband, "That's not a man's face, that's a man's ass." Somewhere Under the Rainbow, Pedro El Farto Gonzalez, who took a seat next to a woman, Heather Reveler, on a New York City-bound Amtrak while she was gazing out the window at a magnificent rainbow, and said, "Lady, my large intestine is loaded with gas, and I'm going to let you have it point blank unless you give me your money." Although Heather gave him her money, Gonzalez let her have it point blank anyway. Essence de Horrible, Yves Fardier, whose gas blast served his purpose so well that a fellow Parisian passenger on the metro bound for Port d'Orleans, who happened to be in the fragrances business, got an idea for a new fragrance that would be targeted for metro passengers like Monsieur Fardier, who preferred to have a double seat all to themselves. Wind-beaten, 2-ton Tessie Grunfart, one of 15 hostages taken at Barclays Bank in Coventry, England, by bank robber Chauncey Begonia, who finally released her because he could no longer tolerate the intestinal effects of her nervousness. The remaining 14 nervous hostages, aware of the reason that 2-ton Tessie was released, attempted to likewise win their own release. And Begonia soon came out of the bank unarmed, with his hands held high. Dishonorable discharge, Ernie Born to Fart Schmucker, who was ordered by his commanding officer, Sergeant Frangipani, while standing at attention during inspection at Fort Bragg, "Shoulders out! Stomach in! Asshole shut!" Too fast to fart. 14-year-old Billy Kaboom Rottenberg, student at Phoenix's Gila Bend High School, whose intentional error made him an early loser in a rather bizarre game of Simon Says. "I didn't say Simon Says," Simon told Billy. The Three Fartketeers. 8-year-old Arthur Farty Arty Fartison, who broke wind upon leaping over the boy at the front, but then got anally assailed by the boy who had been at the rear, in a friendly game of leapfrog that degenerated into leap farting frog. Farting for dollars. Televangelist Jimmy Fowler, who imploringly let one repulsively rip before millions of television viewers, as testimony that God had told him that he would have god-awful gas until he had raised $1 million for his ministry. Farting on Heaven's Door. Angus, minister of Farts Wormser, a homeless man in Liverpool, who showed up at the front door of the home of Reverend Rhododendron and said, "I'm homeless, I'm hungry, and I've got really bad gas. Please help me." Reverend Rhododendron did help Wormser, and, before long, he found more and more raggedly dressed people, not all of whom were homeless, farting at his front door. A fart-loaded freeloader. Freeloading black sheep of the family, Uncle Frankie the Fartloader Kelly, whose eye-watering awfulness during dinner with the family of his kind-hearted, pity-taking sister Petunia brought his nauseated nephew Bud to politely ask, "Uncle Frank, how long will you be staying with us this time?" Petunia answered, "Uncle Frank will be staying with us until he recovers from his gastritis." "And when will that be?" asked Bud. "Oh, it could be weeks, maybe months," said Uncle Frank while letting another one rip. Windstorm. Solicitor Delphinium Mosley, who had rung the doorbell at the Anchorage home of Mad Dog Gaston, and thereupon received the unsolicited wrath of Gaston at his windstorming worst. "No, I don't have any money, but I've got more than enough gas. Here! And here's some more! And there's more where that came from. Here! And here's some more!" Resolved to implement a seize-fart. Harvard University debater Dudley Dufart Buttlinger, whose rebuttal during a national debate contest caused an opposing debater from Rice University, Jonathan Fuchsia, who succeeded Buttlinger to the lectern, to discomposedly forego logical counter-argumentation by simply saying, "Well, your opinion stinks." A major misunderstanding. Edsel Tushwind, whose anal emission had a Gestaltian psychological effect on his automotively ignorant wife, Wedelia, that caused her to misunderstand his comment that he wanted to get a new car fueled by compressed natural gas. So Wedelia said, "Well, if you do get such a car, I'll refuse to ride in it. I don't care how energy efficient it is. I wasn't even aware they were making such cars. Henry Ford must be turning over in his grave." Holy cow. Gassy, a cow, which passed gas through an inserted hose that was connected to a receptor designed to harness the flatulence of cattle and fuel the car of the future, the fartomobile.